Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, after 8 years of marriage, OP's wife cheated with the contractor renovating their house. Discovering explicit texts, he sought revenge by revealing the affair to her parents. Despite her pleas, he filed for divorce, retaining custody of their children without spousal support. The wife kept the renovated house. He bought a new one. They shared joint custody, striving for amicability for their kids' sake. Now let's get into the story. We've been married for 8 years. We met in the workplace, and after my wife got pregnant for the first time, we decided that it would be best for our situation for her to stay home with the kids. It was a mutual decision because she didn't trust leaving the children with daycares or babysitters, and I made more than enough money to take care of all of us without her working. After our second child, we decided that we needed to upgrade our housing situation to accommodate our growing family. We were able to find a relatively decent-priced house that fit our needs. Because at its cheap price, there was a lot of work that we needed to have done on it. I was busy with my full-time job, so I couldn't take over the project, so we ended up hiring a contractor. I left the decisions on who to hire to my wife since she would be the one dealing with them most of the time, and honestly, as long as I had my office space in my home to my liking, I didn't really care much about what the rest of the house looked like. She hired a newer contractor who had recently graduated from a technical college with skills in electrical work, plumbing, and HVAC. It seemed like he was a well-rounded contractor that could take over quite a few areas that needed work in the house. He usually works during the day, so I never really saw him. He was gone by the time I got home from work around 6 p.m. One day, when I had a headache at work and decided to come home a little bit early, I realized that he was quite good-looking. I hadn't known that he was an attractive man before I agreed to hire him. I wasn't jealous, but it made me a little bit uncomfortable knowing that there was this man in the house who my wife would have been crazy not to find attractive. I trusted her, so I didn't think she was going to do anything with the man. When I saw him for the first time, I joked with her about it, and she thought it was ridiculous. Whenever I would be home from work, she would tell me about everything that happened during the day, what the contractor had told her, and what they'd done. From the sounds of it, it seemed like they were generally out of each other's hair. One day, there was a small fire in the office, and after the fire department came and put it out, our boss just had everybody go home early because of the strong smell left behind. I was so thankful to leave. It was a Friday, and I was going to be getting a head start on the weekend, so I was thrilled. That feeling instantly vanished when I walked into my house and heard silence inside. My wife's car was in the driveway, and the contractor's van was there too. I expected to hear noises of his working, or at least some sign of my wife being there, but there was nothing. I had made it a habit not to yell for my wife when I got home to avoid the possibility of waking up our baby during their nap, so I walked through the house looking for my wife. When I made it to our bedroom, I heard the noise inside before I opened the door. There was a soft, thudding noise, and every now and then I could hear stifled moaning. Right away, I knew what I was going to be walking into if I opened the door. I braced myself for what I might see when I opened the door, then pushed it open. Of course, my suspicions were confirmed when I saw the contractor in bed with my wife. They didn't even notice me right away. I yelled at them, asking what was going on, and the contractor jumped away from my wife, and she sat up, trying to cover herself and tell me that it wasn't what it looked like. I couldn't understand how she could try to rationalize what I had just seen as being something else, but she was. I stormed out without saying a word or even bothering to listen to her excuses and checked myself into a hotel for the night. I spent about half of the night tossing and turning and trying to think of what my next steps would be. I had absolutely no desire to be with her ever again, but filing for divorce and saying I caught would only be my word against hers. She could easily lie and say that I was accusing her of something false. I needed proof. After doing some digging online, I learned that I could look at my detailed phone bill to see what calls and text messages had been sent out. Apparently, the providers keep records of all of that. The more I looked, the more I realized what happened with her and the contractor was not a one-time thing. They communicated quite often, and some of the text messages that they shared were very explicit. I saved that information so I could use it in our divorce filings, but I still felt like I needed to do something else to get revenge. I knew that if her parents found out about what she did, they would practically disown her. I was family to them, and knowing that their daughter cheated on her husband and stole a happy life away from her children would upset them. In the morning, I gave them a call and asked if I could come to dinner with them sometime soon because I was planning a surprise for my wife. All the while, she was texting me and calling me non-stop, begging me to come home and telling me to think about the children, as if she was thinking about the children when she was cheating on me. I had dinner with her parents and her sister came along as well. While we were there, we caught up and they asked me why I gathered them all and I told them about what happened. I showed them some of the tamer messages between her and the contractor, wanting to spare them the gory details of what their daughter was saying. They were appalled by her behavior. They called her later that night and told her how disappointed she was and how wrong she had been for throwing away a good marriage. I knew she felt badly too, and she wanted to do what she could to fix it, but I wasn't going to hear that. I took the evidence that I had to my divorce attorney and started the filing. In the end, I let her keep the house that she and the contractor had built together, and I bought a new one for myself. I didn't have to pay any puzzle support because she had violated the terms of our marriage, so she was forced to get a job. We now have joint custody of our kids, and we try to be amicable with each other so they aren't hurt. Today's second story. In this story, OP met his fiancée at a convention, leading to a long-distance relationship. They moved in together, and he proposed. Before their wedding, they had separate bachelor and bachelorette parties. Suspicious of his fiancée's behavior, he discovered evidence of her intimate encounter with her ex. At the rehearsal dinner, he exposed her infidelity, leading to the end of their relationship, his departure, and cutting ties with her. Now let's get into the story. I, 26 male, met my fiancée, 26 female, at a convention I was at for work 3 years ago, and we hit it off instantly. We ended up hooking up that first night, but we exchanged numbers, and we stayed in touch. Not long after we had to leave each other, we sort of developed this long-distance relationship. Over time, that developed into a monogamous relationship, and after a while, I decided to move over to her city. She had a sick grandparent at the time that she was helping take care of, so it only seemed right that I be the one to move. After we lived together for about 6 months, I knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I bought a raincoat and I proposed. Not even a week after I proposed, she started planning the wedding with her best friend and her sister. Everything between us was perfect. I didn't think I would have had any reason to worry about her behavior. We were dedicated to each other, and I fully trusted her. Being away from all of my friends and family was difficult. I had a pretty tight-knit group of people back home, so I really tried to immerse myself in my work to avoid the lonely feelings I was having without them there. Months passed, and we're getting closer to the wedding date. My fiancé had everything planned, and everything was going very smoothly leading up to the bachelor and bachelorette parties. I was able to find a weekend where all of my good friends and my brother were able to come over and visit for the bachelor party. We rented an Eridan at a cabin on the lake. We spent the whole weekend drinking beer and fishing. Honestly, I had no desire to go to any clubs or hire any dancers or anything like that. I just wanted to have a weekend with my friends. My fiancée, on the other hand, wanted to have the party of her life. She's been telling me all about what her dream bachelor party was, and it involved going to Vegas, gambling a little bit, going to shows, male strip clubs, and the works. Again, I'm not going to be a fan of the show. Then I trusted her, so I didn't think anything was going to happen. We both went our separate ways for the weekend, and we didn't talk to each other at all. Our friends made sure we had no contact with each other, because they insisted that was the point of this party. When the weekend was over, she and I both got back home, and we filled each other in on what happened at the parties. I told her that nothing too exciting really happened. It was more so a relaxing weekend than anything. She kept insisting that I was hiding something, in a joking manner at first, but it quickly took a turn and it seemed somewhat accusatory. She thought it was abnormal for a man to have a bachelor party without any dancers being present, so she thought I was lying to her. She told me she had a fun time with the girls. They were drunk almost all of the weekend, and she said it was a nice farewell to her single life. A few days had passed, and I was at home working when I heard her laptop dinging. She had been over at her grandmother's house, helping her with some cleaning and things like that. I assumed that she must have just left it open by mistake. I'd never been too nosy before or anything like that, but there were a lot of notifications going on. I started to get kind of worried. I thought that maybe it might have been her sending a message to get my attention in case something happened and she couldn't reach me. So I once just wanted to take a brief look at what was happening. Turns out, it was her bachelorette party group chat sending all of the pictures and videos from the weekend. I laughed to myself thinking I was just being paranoid. However, I did look at the pictures. My alarm bells quickly started to go off when I saw an ex-boyfriend of hers in the pictures. She and I had been open about all of our past relationships, so I knew who he was as soon as I saw him. In fact, he was somebody that she had been with for many years, even longer than she and I were together. Sometimes I wondered if she was still in love with him, but she convinced me that she wasn't. She said he had a new girlfriend and they were just friends. He was even invited to the wedding. In several pictures, they were very close to each other. He had his hand on her lower back and they were dancing together. It seemed pretty intimate, definitely too close for comfort for me. As I kept scrolling, I found a video that another girl had taken, and in the background, I could see my fiancée climbing onto the couch where her ex was sitting and straddling him. Other girls were screaming at them and cheering them on as she kissed him. It got hot and heavy real quick. The video ended with them walking off hand in hand to go God only knows where. I felt sick to my stomach. Never in my life had I felt as heartbroken as I did in that moment. I had always been insecure about her ex, and there they were kissing and going off to what I assumed was a bedroom together. Right away, I looked through their messages and I found more evidence that confirmed they in fact sleep together. On top of that, I learned that they had unprotected intimacy. I learned that because, in one of the messages following their night together, he told her that he found out he had a venereal disease and that she should get tested. I was extremely thankful that she and I had made an agreement not to sleep together until the night of the wedding. The last time we had been together was a week before the parties, so if she contracted anything from him, I didn't get it. I was angry, I was hurt, and I wanted to get back at her. The wedding was off, but she didn't know that. I screenshot the messages and saved the videos so I could send them to myself to have as evidence. The rehearsal dinner for our wedding was just around the corner, and she and I had planned on giving little speeches in front of everyone. Another part of that was giving them little gift bags to thank them for their involvement. I printed out about 50 copies of the text messages with pictures of my fiancée and her ex kissing at the bachelorette party. When the day of the rehearsal dinner came around, I slipped them into the goodie bags. My fiancée gave her speech, telling everybody about how much she loves me and how much she couldn't live without me. When it came to my turn to give the speech, I started off by saying that I put a surprise for everybody in the gift bags, and I asked them to take a look. Honestly, I hadn't known that he was going to be there with his girlfriend, but it was a pleasant surprise to see it. The smile on my face and Sue's face quickly faded away when she looked at what everyone was pulling out of the bags. On top of that, her ex's new girlfriend poured water all over him and ended things right there. She even yelled at him about how irresponsible he was and how he could have given something to her. Honestly, it made me wonder if that wasn't the first time he cheated on her. After she stormed out of the restaurant, I started my speech. I started off by saying how glad I was to have found out about my fiancée's true nature before we were married. Then I called everything off, telling everybody to return all the gifts they bought or keep them for themselves. I walked away and my now ex-fiancée was chasing me to try to explain what happened. She tried to lie to me and tell me they didn't sleep together. But in the messages, he clearly said that he might have passed her an STD, so I didn't understand how she thought she was getting away with that lie. I ended up going back to our apartment and packing up the small number of things that I moved there with. I booked a flight back home and I stayed with my brother for a few weeks until I found my own place. Now she's out of my life for good, and I don't want anything to do with her ever again.